All right, well, welcome everyone to DES 344, Advanced Print Production. And we are in our first session of our third week of our 10th mod together. So hopefully everybody's doing good in week 3, feeling excited for projects, feeling like composed and um, yeah, feeling like you're not behind, I guess. Hopefully you're not feeling stressed. And if you are feeling a little bit stressed, uh, know that we will, do our best. I will do my best to grade late work quickly. I will accept all late work, and that I am kind of more than on your side to help you kind of through this whole process, and hopefully to get everybody to the end with a passing mark. So if you're feeling a little bit stressed, just think like, how can I have Lisa help me? And see if she can help me in that manner. I won't, do work for you, but I will help you, coach you, kind of cheer you along in a lot of ways. So, just see how you're feeling, kind of see what you're doing, and we can kind of make it work from there. All right, so let's jump into our agenda for the day. Now let me just make this disclaimer. We're maybe not going to hit everything of this today. We're gonna we'll see where we're gonna go. And basically in this week 3, things are a little bit going to shift just schedule wise, mostly because I have some week 3 meetings that I inevitably forget about. And then when it becomes week 3, I say, oh yeah, that's right, I should have altered the schedule a bit. So just as I'm willing to give you guys a bunch of grace with project submissions and stuff, this week I would kind of ask that you would give me a bit of grace, just because our time schedule is going to be slightly irregular. But I will make sure that you have everything that you need, and especially everything that you need to succeed in these different places. So don't feel like you are lost or left by the wayside, but there might be a third session this week. So we might do kind of an hour, 2 hours, an hour, or 2 hours, 1 hour, 1 hour. So I don't know. We'll see how it kind of shakes out. But yeah, so I will keep you 100% in the loop. So just kind of a disclaimer putting that out there. All right, so today we are going to do some pretty in-depth feedback. We are also going to do some review, but feedback in particular, we're going to talk about the assignment from week 2, as well as the assessment from week 2. So the week 2 assessment is actually going to kind of form the core of assignments from here on out. So if you have taken a peek at the assignment and the assessment this week, as well as the assignment assessment for week 4, you'll see kind of what that means as we build on our Cloud Sunbeam look and feel. So I want to make sure that everybody is really up to speed, kind of feeling good about what they're doing, so that they can have a good piece kind of moving forward and a good portfolio piece in the end. So we're going to do lots of feedback. We're going to do some review, since if you guys are anything like me, does week 2 feel like it was about 6 months ago? I'm there. But yeah, so just to kind of get everybody up to speed. And then if we have time, we're going to talk about running the numbers, which is going to specifically involve the assessment for this week, which is actually getting a bid on a print production item, kind of several different items, and kind of doing a comparison and such. So feedback, review, running the numbers, where we should be headed. All right, so here's a couple learning objectives for the week. Again, We're going to discuss the life cycle of a print project from initial design to final product. So this is within the context of our discussion. So make sure you are jumping in there sooner than later. Number 2, discuss industry typical goals, strategies, and methods for spot color, die cutting, and special coating applications. So this is kind of in regards to our assignment assessment. And the good news for all of you is that, well, and the good news for everybody, I guess, me included, is that as we said in last week's sessions, spot color, die cutting, specialty coating, those are all things that kind of, they look amazing. They have a very high kind of bang for your buck when you're designing, or I'm sorry, when you're holding a physical print piece. But as far as designing, as far as what you need to do, what you need to know, they're actually super, super easy to do. So it's a really cool, cool thing that the big print production process, kind of the hard, complicated stuff, really is everything that happens that we don't really have to worry about. So that's kind of cool and amazing. Okay, so spot color, die cutting, industry typical goals. Then we're going to create a press ready deliverable with an embossing layer. So we talked die cuts, we talked specialty finishes. This week we're going to bring up embossing, and I can already imagine, yeah, you can probably imagine, since all these techniques are kind of accomplished in the same way. Embossing, you may already have a guess how to do that. Okay, so an embossing layer. And then create a print-ready file in Adobe InDesign for an advanced printing method. So what that might be. Then apply the 4 main principles of design to produce a print-ready promotional material. And then apply research and math skills to create a print budget analysis. So this is really, again, kind of walking us through the steps that we're going to do for this week, kind of things that we're going to cover. So it's a good, in the learning objectives, it's a good overview of what's to come. All right, so we're going to do a bit of review before we jump into the feedback portion. So being special, something that we talked about last week, particularly in the context of specialty print production features. So specialty finishes, i.e. dye lines, foils, glosses, etc., are the easiest, in all caps, easiest way to get a massive impact in your work. So like we said, they look amazing, they look incredible, but they're actually super, super easy. So really a good thing to add to your kind of repertoire as a designer, just to know how to do it. Excuse me, because it will pay off. It will pay off handsomely if you can kind of incorporate it. So easiest way to get a massive impact in your work. So just to kind of review what these different terms mean. So die cut is basically a cut shape in a document. So if you remember in our session last week, I had out the hole punch and I was hole punching things, and that's basically a die cut. So it's just a fancy way to do a cut in a document. So next thing is going to be foil. So foil is a metallic application in a targeted area. Again, we differentiated between metallic inks versus foil application. So metallic ink has metallics actually in the ink itself, whereas foils is the sticky substance. The foil goes on top, and then heat kind of bonds, fuses together, and it really presents a good sense of dimensionality to the piece. So metallic application in a targeted area. Next specialty finish is spot gloss, and spot gloss is a glossy spot application in a targeted area. So again, it really sets off a certain zone. So it kind of makes something shiny in the midst of a field of matte, makes something matte in the midst of a field of shiny, and it really has an interesting kind of textural feel to it. So spot gloss, glossy application, or matte in a targeted area. Okay, so how do we make it? A die cut is literally a cut in a finished printed piece. So you need to create a die, which is like a giant punch, and that kind of works to kind of take out a certain zone. Okay, so here are a couple examples. So you can see this cover has been die cut to say Viva, and you can see the background of that kind of coming through. Oops. So the key to making a die cut is exactly the same as a spot varnish or an emboss. It all comes down to a spot color, as well as a targeted layer application. So again, this is not rocket science. This is all about using your layers panel, using your swatches panel smartly, and then creating from that. Okay, so super easy. I think we're just gonna buzz through these. So your printer needs a plate all by itself that shows exactly where the cut or varnish or emboss is going to be. So here's kind of how the setup must be in a snapshot, and then some steps, and yeah, that's the that's the end of that. Okay, so for week 2, you guys were creating a paper swatch booklet with some die cuts in it. And so we are now going to, and you are also creating some posters with a specialty application. So we are now going to take a look at some submissions that came in, and we're going to do feedback and just kind of cover what's going on there. So let me switch around some things, pull up some stuff, and go from there. I apologize too if I'm sniffy. Tis the season. I'm trying really hard not to do anything obnoxious as we're recording, because I know that sounds really disgusting. But every once in a while, can't help it. Okay, so let's actually jump into the classroom first before we jump into this. Okay, so paper stock swatch booklet. You guys are browsing Neenah paper and finding swatches that would go 2 swatches for the following 4 projects. So what would be a good fit, kind of how that would work, that sort of thing. Okay, so we're going to check this out. So we set our booklets up in InDesign, and I'm just going to walk you guys through kind of how I graded these, kind of what I was looking for. And then we're also going to touch on just some kind of overall construction issues, as well as just some general design issues. And so I graded most of these over the weekend. I did see that there was 2 more submissions that came in, so I don't think those have been marked. But excuse me, if your piece is shown and you would like to do any changes, updates, etc. with it, totally fine. You can make the changes and just resubmit, and I would be I would be cool with that. Okay, so I opened everybody's files in InDesign, and kind of the first thing I wanted to just note before we even jump into things is package. Make sure you are packaging your file. And the way that you do that is just file and then package. And the reason that it's very, very important that you package is because there were a couple files that had not been packaged. And so when I went to open your InDesign file, I got an error message that all of your swatch pictures were not accessible. And so if that happens in a print situation, it means that you have to resubmit your file. It means everything gets held up. And it ultimately means more money gets spent. So it's not just me being difficult. You need to package because your printer will only be able to access your file if it's been packaged. So unless your printer says specifically, just send a PDF and I'm cool, you need to package it. So kind of a heads up about that. All right, so what I did when I was opening your files is I would open up the layers panel, and then I would open up the swatches panel as well, because I wanted to see kind of how you guys had constructed what was going on. So in the layers panel, I was looking for a die cut layer, at least one, perhaps two if you're going to have multiple die cut elements. So that's kind of what I was going for. And then in the swatches panel, I was just looking to see if you had a color indicating what the die cut would be. So a spot that was for the die cut itself. And the other thing I was hopeful for, is that you were removing all the color swatches that weren't in use in your piece. And again, you do that just by clicking up here and select all unused and then just deleting. And again, it's just a housekeeping issue to kind of keep your swatches panel clear. Okay, so overall looks good. One thing, this guy is for the side. This is, I think, for this, but this did not make it into the die cut layer. So, and this is something I have done not a million times, but I've done quite a bit myself, where you're like all on track, you're creating the layer, whatever, and then you go to upload it and you realize you haven't dropped it in the layer. So it's just good practice. Once again, when you're checking your file, just turn on and off your layers and make sure what you think is on them is actually on them, just so it kind of works a bit better. Okay, so here's mostly because if this were to go to print, your printer would be such a stickler and be like, oh, but I thought you wanted these blue stop signs on the cover, and you're like, no, those are the punches. How did you not see that it matches? But if it's not on the layer, it's out of their hands. Okay, so here we're going to just take a brief detour into kind of how the type itself is laid out, how the swatch is shown. So this is not bad overall. The one thing you want to be really careful of, and this is for everybody, is really just your spacing. So right now, I know it's hard to imagine because it looks like it's a graphic element, but this is going to be a punch out. So there's going to be nothing there. So this feels like it's a little close to where the hole punch is going to come. And so what might be better is if we just moved it over, so it was in theory aligned with the paper swatch itself. So it would just give it a little bit more, just a little bit more spacing, so it wouldn't be so close. Whenever you do trims, whenever you do die cuts, whenever you do anything like that, it's always a tricky thing, because in theory, you're not. Oops, sorry. Knock out my headset. In theory, it seems like you should be far enough away that it would be okay. But then sometimes in practice, just when you have that kind of punch out, that dimensionality introduced, it looks a little too close. So I would say it's always good to kind of err on the side of more space, just because you never know kind of visually how it's going to lay out. So just, something to kind of keep in mind. And then another thing to keep in mind too is when you are laying out type, and this is again for anybody, you really want to think about your visual hierarchy of the type. So basically what that means is you really want to think about what you see first and then what you see next. So what you see first kind of has the connotation of being quite important, and then what you see next is kind of like second in importance. So kind of keep that in mind as you're laying out a piece of type. So often it's as easy as, I described it in some ways I think that are a little bit complicated, but I think it's oftentimes very easy to just do just match a weight, or I'm sorry, just contrast a weight. So you can see here we have Rockwell extra bold for this whole paragraph. So if we just did Rockwell, let's find Rockwell if I have Rockwell. Here's Rockwell. So if you did, I don't even know if you need to go extra bold for the headings. Rockwell, where are you? There you are. So you did Rockwell bold, and then you did Rockwell regular for the, there it is, regular for the rest of the type. I feel like that would just be a little bit easier visually. So it would, let me get my eyedropper so I can change up the type quicker. Yeah, so it wouldn't be all that, wouldn't be everything that was the same weight. It would be some things were more bold, some things were less bold, and just kind of that in itself would help navigate your eye through. So you'd be able to see what's what's what. Okay, apparently I can't talk and highlight and change things up at the same time. But yeah, so I mean, hopefully that you just kind of see what's going on, and you'll notice as we go through that you can even change up your fonts, and that in itself will give you that sense of contrast too. So you can see it's a little cleaner, it's a little easier. And the other thing too you want to be careful of is just what you're leaving alone on one line. So classic linen paper, maybe we can have Avon Brilliant White on the second line. So there's kind of really no hard and fast rules about how you compose text, except that you generally don't want to leave just like one word on a line. So you want to figure out a way to kind of bring things together. So it's very much about a feel. See, like white, if we just drop down white pearl here, so it would be a little bit more even, PC 100 to go with natural. So it's kind of all about just developing that sensitivity to not leaving things alone, and that it takes a bit. So it's always kind of a work in progress. But yeah, so if you look at this this page, it just feels a little spread out, a little close to where there's going to be a pretty significant hole punch. So again, you just want to zip it over a little bit, and then work with the type itself to just give it a little bit more flow overall. So, okay, so let's jump into the next picture. Oops. Okay, so here we see paper samples. So again, we're going to look at the layers panel, and we have the die cut 1. It's going to go here. Die cut 2. Thumbs up to that. Looks pretty good. Text on its own layer. Interesting. Not sure why that's there. But yeah, so this looks like it's going to have a giant triangle. So what's going to be the thing you see when the triangle cuts through? Always an interesting idea. Okay, let's see what this. Okay, so that too is going to die cut here. Okay, looks good. So the other thing I'm checking out here is swatches panel, and we have all the die cuts indicated nicely, but we don't have a color in particular that's going to be a die cut. So it looks like we have pink and blue, but you do want to remember specialty indicator, so that we just know we know what's going on. We know what it's going to be. It's not a printed element It's something that's going to be the print production is going to be taken out. So kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so let's see what's, oh, is this on the master page? Oh, weird. I wonder why it's locked. Oh, that would be why it's locked. Okay. Okay, no, looks good. I was thinking there's an indicator that there's more text, but that must be an error. Okay, Astropash looks good. Again, looks good. So I would say it looks good. But again, think about how you can kind of, again, set these apart. So book Antigua, nice. But is there a bold, oops, oh, that might have been a happy accident. Could you do bold italic for what these guys are? And what that would look like. So again, just separating out the indicator, the title, from the, oops, that was a bold, from the information. Very, very, very helpful because it can, then you can kind of see what's ahead, kind of see what's coming. So kind of cool in many ways. So something to consider. And then the other thing too is, so you have these indicators that there's going to be a die cut here. Wait, does it disappear? Does the die cut then only move to here? How is this book going to be bound? So you want to really think about what you're putting in and why, and then carry it through for consistency purposes all the way. And one other thing, as long as I'm here, is think about kind of how these things are aligned. So ideally, I think it would be good to have it maybe a little bit closer to your swatch, or maybe directly above. Maybe have the title a little bit bigger. Right now, it feels odd that it's not really aligned. It's kind of almost, but not quite. So you want to figure out how you can get that into a bit more of a consistent zone. So yeah, so overall, I mean, it's an okay layout. There's a couple kind of oddities in spacing, and then also in the lack of that side rim or die cut section. So definitely something to consider, something to think about as far as how you can kind of update that a bit more. So it's yeah, I mean it's working, but I feel like with just a couple of kind of updates overall, you might be able to make something a bit more, a bit more kind of just tight and finished overall. And even if this got to bold, that might be kind of cool. Yeah. So anyway, I won't fuss with it, but overall, good start. A couple things here for sure. And update it that way. Okay. So here's another example. Oops, we were on the back cover. So here's the die cut layer. Everything's in it. Die cut spot color, looking good. So as we go down, I like this die cut kind of indicator of all the different shapes that are going to be cut out. I think it's very interesting. It's almost like it's a little lacy quality. Again, you do have to be careful that you're not putting in so much that you're going to kind of degrade the quality of the or the integrity, I should say, of the cover. It's not going to get too floppy because of all those holes. So something to consider. And the other thing too is you have a very centered alignment on this cover. So it might be nice to, I'm not sure why that's strange. Just center your title as well. So, you have it all kind of leading your eye down and it feels logical. The other thing too is, okay, those are in the same spots. I would say they seem like they're just a touch off, but I think that's my eye that's a touch off. So we won't go in there. Okay, so this looks great overall as far as kind of visual hierarchy, like we were talking about, kind of using your bold weight, using your regular weights in a good manner. That said, it's a little unfortunate that there's so many spelling errors. So you really want to make sure that you don't have errors, especially in something like this that could in theory be a client, something that would meet a client at some point. So you want to make sure everything is spelled correctly. You also want to make sure your spacing is kind of consistent. So sheet finish looks like it just had one space, whereas this looks like it has two. This looks like it has one. So and this is a lowercase. So you want everything to have the same look and feel. So it looks like a consistent kind of flow overall. So just kind of go through and and check that out. And you'll see that InDesign does have spell check features, and I can't remember. I don't think it's an extra. I can't remember how if it's a default now, because I feel like for me it just started showing up. Perhaps I was having so many. Oh, here's spelling. Okay, so under Edit Spelling, and if you go to Dynamic Spelling, then it'll show you almost like a Microsoft Word look to it, where it will have the red line if you're not meeting some sort of standard spelling, and then it'll just kind of give you the alert that way. And this is just if you hit W and you're in the preview mode. So, or I'm sorry, the working mode, as opposed to the print mode. So something definitely to take advantage of, because I know it's very easy. Everybody knows it's very easy to make spelling errors and to just not see things as you're designing. And so this just helps us in a lot of ways, kind of overcome that sort of bias. So, but yeah, otherwise looks good overall. You will notice that there's something's missing. So again, remember package, so that we don't have those issues. But yeah. Okay, so moving right along, let's go to our next one. Paper samples swatch booklets. And you may say, where's the die cut? Oh, there it is. So this is going to actually be a die cut of text, which I think is great. Good idea. So here's another. So here's the page overall. I'm a little iffy as to how it's going to be printed, but I'm guessing spiral. Guessing being the operative word. Okay, so here you can see just the different ways that the student has really done their typographic hierarchy, their overall kind of alignment and usage of different fonts. I think it's working really well, especially with that bold italic face, and then the lighter. So it's a good kind of combo back and forth. Again, looking good. And super clean. Yeah, so I think this is overall working very nicely. And let's get into this mode so we can actually see it. It's very plain, but it kind of works very well because it's got that good kind of partition to it. So you can see name and swatch. And if you think about it, I mean, the purpose of the swatch book really is to, just kind of quickly reference, what the paper is, weights that it comes in, finishes that it comes in, what it could be used for. So it's nice to have just this overall simplicity to it. So yeah, okay. So moving right along, here's our next one. So die cut layer. It's going to be here. Ooh, it disappears when we go into the other mode. Oh, that's kind of wild. Okay, so those things will clearly be taken out, which is good to note. Okay, so let's see the overall look. Okay, so looking good again. We have our die cut layer coming through, as well as die cut spot color, what that's going to look like. So yeah. Okay, so first, I'm sorry, I'm reading and reacting at the same time. Which clearly we already know that doesn't work for me. So a couple things, just spacing, make sure that you have an even keel, an even look. But yeah, I like that the name of the paper itself is bigger and is also in blue. And then things like weight, sheet finish, that's kind of big as well, so you can look. Yeah, I was gonna say there's a little part of me that's like, oh, it's so easy to read sheet finish and it's so hard to read linen because it's so small. So I think just be careful. Uh, excuse me, be careful with just the sizing overall. But I think it's working. I think maybe like, I guess 18, that's pretty big. Oh no, it's 12. Maybe 14 and 18 might be even better, just to kind of even it out slightly. So you might consider that. But I do like the change in size. It's adding some good rhythm to it. And I like these lines too. They almost look like tape to me or something. So that's kind of a cool thing for sure. Yeah, so overall looks good. And again, it's super easy to scan, which is quite nice because then you can just see it. You don't have to um, spend actually a lot spend a lot of time reading. You can just look at it and kind of instinctually know what's going on. So very cool. All right, so next one, I'm gonna look at paper stock swatch booklet. Again, careful here where we have a cutout and then we have type. This looks very, very, very close. So I think if we, did something like that, maybe we make this 20. Does that get it all in one line? Just think cleverly how you can overcome the challenges of having a die cut and of the kind of lesser space that you have overall, because it's a little tricky in a lot of ways. So let's move this down. So maybe something like that is a bit better, or moving this guy all the way up here. So just kind of think about how you can place, how you can do the layout overall. Okay, so checking out die cuts. Oops. Just make sure the paper doesn't get into the same same zone. Remember, because we're just going to die cut the corners. But yeah, this setup looks pretty good overall. This feels a little iffy, mostly because I don't quite know. Well, I mean, I know what these things are because I know the assignment, but I think we do need titles. So you can see just like that's name, weight, finish, usage. So you can just do it here. Name, weight, finish, oops, usage. And then, oh no, it looks like it's Minion. So remember, I think Avenir was used in the front or on the cover. So how about we, go with that again here. So just kind of keeping that consistency. And, we can even dial it up in size a little bit. And then open this up. I think environment is maybe part of the title. And then just go through and change these up so that they have a bit more kind of oomph to them, so that we can navigate through. just a little bit better. So remember, as designers, kind of our goal, it's very odd, it's very counterintuitive, but it really is that we don't have to have our audience read. They can just kind of scan and see and go from there, and that will be, a win on our part, because people like to just kind of know what's up, as opposed to having to do a whole bunch of like reading and figuring out type thing. So kind of, it's just kind of move. It's slight tweaks. It's nothing like redesign the whole thing. But no, it's just kind of slight tweaks that will really give it just a little bit more impact overall, and just kind of make it a bit more clear. So you can see here's this one. Feels a little, honestly, it feels a little squished up in the corner. Whereas then we have, something that's a little bit more central focused, and just has a bit more flow to it overall. So, and is this Avenir? Oh, Arial. Okay. If we made that Avenir, yeah, that might work. So, okay. So last but not least, look at this guy here. Okay, we have die cut layer. Looks good. Then we have swatches. Working overall. Again, it looks great. You can see each of the swatches is tucked in and working well. So here it's interesting too to see how the different different weights of the font really are working together too. So we have the italic, and then we have the regular, and you can kind of see them back and forth. Again, just helps you kind of navigate through what's going on. So overall looks very good. Okay, so that is the assignment for this for last week, for week 2. And if you did not complete it yet, still time, always time. And so hopefully kind of looking at those was a good way to see, what your peers, what your compatriots were doing, and then kind of get an idea of what you could be doing for the process. So we're going to just take a quick look at the posters that came up for assessment 2, and I stopped sharing because this was the thing I meant to open up before we started this session, and I forgot. So we're just going to take a couple, 30 seconds or so to open up a couple so we can, again, go over the posters. And I guess while those are opening up, well, no, we won't do that. I was going to say we could look at the assessment, but we're not going to try to switch screens because that gets a little disorienting. Okay, so here are our cloud sunbeams again, and let's see if we can get much better. So here is once again, and as I was marking these, I also had the layers panel open, because again, remember these each had specialty finish noted. And so I was just checking out if it was there, what it was, that sort of thing. So for this one, I think it was this. Let me just get rid of this because it's bothering me. I think it was this, which would be this, but it's actually not labeled as anything. So you just want to make sure that if you have that specialty print finish in your file, that you are both, that you are labeling it with something, mostly because you really want to, have that be something that your printer is going to know about. So you really want to take that into account. So layer 6, just give it a name, and things should be a bit better with that. But yeah, overall, I love this. I think this is a really, this is a really interesting poster. It has a lot of kind of abstract dynamic feel. And I love compositionally, it really points with these sunbeams, they point directly into the text itself. So I'm super excited to see this, see this continue on, see this kind of brand built out, because it feels highly creative to me. And it also feels highly appropriate to the message, for a band that wants something called Cloud Sunbeam. They do electronic music. They have, kind of that abstract-y vibe. This feels like it's a good fit. So yeah, great work. Great work overall. Okay, so let's jump to the next one to see it. So this one, I like the boldness of the colors overall. But again, you want to be very careful that you have a layer that's indicated as something special, like some sort of specialty print finish. And I think it's almost just a little bit on the too much side, as far as kind of the color combinations and just the overall vibration factor of the colors. So you might want to consider just how you can perhaps tone it down just a bit. So maybe this, actually, I think it's the pink on the blue. Maybe we can tone down the blue the green to like 50%, just so it's slightly easier to look at. So the colors don't have maybe quite. All right, and we're back. It's always exciting when you're talking and suddenly everything disappears. It's like, wait, where did everybody go? Okay, but anyway, as I was saying, to have it, to just play with a little bit lighter opacity, so it's just a little bit easier to look at. It almost kind of looks like an eclipse right now, which is kind of cool, very timely. And the other thing too is consider how you can make your fonts more cohesive. So this is Poplar Standard Black. This is Nuevo Standard, and then this is going to be Onyx. So 3 fonts, I don't think you really need that much. So I would do, I would keep it all Poplar, because that seems to be the most bold. Oops. And then kind of go from there. I like that the waterfront park is in its own little blip. So that's kind of cool. But again, I think you want to just dial down the opacity on this one. So it can also, I guess we can also kind of repeat that, that idea of kind of being semi-transparent, kind of translucent type thing. Let's make this just slightly bigger. So with posters, and this is good for everybody, if you're like, this isn't my work, I can tune out. No, keep on listening. So with posters, you really want to really think about the visual hierarchy. So what are you going to see first? What are you going to see next? What are you going to see last? What's, the most important thing you need? What's the least important, type deal? So I think most important definitely is the name of the band itself. So you want to kind of highlight that in a good way. Next important, maybe is dates, maybe is location, kind of up to you. And then, what's after that. So, yeah, how you can kind of have that flow of pieces overall. So bring that to 30, what that would look like. Bring that up to 80. So I'm just kind of, that's kind of cool though to have, if this is like a gold feature, or this is a, so we gotta get Mountain Park Presents in there too. If this is a, something that has a specialty finish, maybe that's kind of how you work with it. So yeah. But yeah, so I would challenge you, if this was your work, just think about how you can kind of play with the opacities, and then really think about how you can play with just the overall orientation. And remember, consistency in your font choices. So you want it to all feel like a universal thing, like it's cohesiveness. Not, that's kind of choppy with all the different fonts going on. And then too, you want to make sure that you have a layer that's indicating something that we can then know what the specialty print finish is going to be. So okay, so next look. Okay, so we have spot varnish happening. Oh, this is happening on the text, but you can't see it because it's black on black, which is okay. But yeah, so again, very cool. I love this idea of playing with shapes. And as we were talking about transparencies, these are actually orange shapes. Craziness. And they have this, this kind of, if I can get it there. Oh, it's locked. Unlock it. They have just a gradient over them. And so look at this, guys, like so cool. Oops, I can move it. It's like nothing. And then you put this gradient over it and it suddenly becomes just something that's kind of magical. So the power of Adobe software, the power of color, the power of just playing with different opacities. So cool when you start exploring it. So, what is this? It's repeated shapes. But it turns into something that's pretty cool and completely unexpected. So again, kind of play and see what you can get, what you can find, and it's a pretty cool feature overall. So yeah, I think this one's totally working again. Okay, so here's another one. So here I see again we're kind of missing what's kind of the specialty print finish. So you want to make sure that you're getting that in. And then I like these just kind of overlap shapes overall. But I think that this type is just getting a little bit lost. So this is Hoffler text, not quite an electronic kind of dancey poster type idea. So I would challenge you to go much more N-T-A, oops, A-I-N. Just go much more kind of experimental. Like this is your chance to do whatever you want to with this type. So think about the type that we just saw before. What could you put in here that might be just something a little bit more crazy and a little bit more kind of like rock and roll-ish. Or I mean that in a fully electronic dance manner, but just that has a little bit more kind of freedom to it overall. So let's just go to paragraph. Let's see, I did a baseline too, put that 50 maybe. So it just feels a little bit more kind of dusty and grungy. So as a designer, guarantee you're going to have lots of clients to use, very kind of formally type with. So use exercises like this to just kind of explore and go a little bit crazy in, the potential that you have for your elements. And if you're like, that's totally not me, I get it. And that's fine. You don't have, if you feel like it's, way out of your way out of your zone, way out of your lane, that's fine, but just kind of practice, practice entering places that are maybe a little bit out of, your lane. Mostly because if you have a client that does request something that's a little bit kind of crazier, you want to just have some experience with it and say, hey, I actually can do that. I can leave my personal style for a bit and go with, something that's going to be more of a fit to your skills, to your needs, that sort of thing. So again, think about visual hierarchy. How can you make the name of the band kind of the most important part? And then you have a lot of these really cool kind of lines that you're playing around with. So why not use those compositionally too. Maybe even take your type, rotate it. So it kind of fits along those bars. And see, what you can, what you can come up with, how you can make it, how you can kind of just make it fall into the feel of that. And it's a little off overall, but you kind of get the picture. So, you got this geometry, like use it. Maybe you can even put cloud sunbeam, going into diagonal. Who knows what the feel might be. So I would say I like this background. I mean, I think it's interesting kind of how it's moving overall. But then also really think about how you can turn up the volume on your type so that it feels just a little bit more kind of rock and roll-ish and a little bit less like it's kind of so formal. So what's the way you can kind of push that? Okay, so we got our final one. Okay, so we got a spot gloss happening here. Ooh, glossy pink letters, so cool. Yeah, so again, I like this kind of how it's coming together, all the different elements happening. I like the different shapes. I almost feel like I want to just go, I don't want to go, but I want you to go, like fully kind of deconstructed. So if this is going to be glossy, then it's, you're going to be fine, regardless of, if it has a good backer or not. So I get the white background on it was a good way to just give it kind of that extra oomph so you could see it. But there's a lot going on, and so I think it's got, kind of got that oomph anyway. But yeah, what I would say is just go like even a little bit more crazy with these shapes. So I love that you're playing with a drop shadow. It feels very like 1980s in a good way. I was hoping that we get the layer style too, but it didn't, but that's okay. But yeah, so I would say just turn it up even more. So it's cool, like, this is going to ruin the gloss, but I want to just get them a little closer. Well, I guess I just did it to the spot gloss. But yeah, so it's cool, but like just keep on pushing it. Just keep on seeing how you can make it just even more kind of off kilter, off center. And I think that would be a really cool idea. And maybe even for this, maybe even for you too, this would actually be really cool to have it. Yeah, to have it go angular. Can we do angles on this one too? Oh, ho, ho, look at this. Look at how cool that is. If you keep on skewing what you have going on. Oh, I think that's working really well. Yeah, and then almost if I feel like there's a lot of empty space at the top. So almost if we did a little bit more down here. And then this guy, maybe bring down one of these rectangles. So just have this like layered consistency. Yeah, I like that feel. So I think just more. For you, I would say just more. Because again, you don't have to worry that this is like, oh no, like, are we breaking too many rules? Is this too crazy? No, no, they want, yeah, I'm speaking on their behalf, but they want, kind of more crazy. More crazy is better. In so many ways. So kind of keep that in mind as you are coming about this, as you're composing. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful for everybody. You got to see kind of some new potential, new ways to go about this. So you might be thinking, you mentioned something about this is going to be the thing for the future that all projects are built on and whatever. Yes, indeed. Indeed, that is the case. So if you've looked ahead, the assignment for this week, we are not going to go over this. We're going to go over this in tomorrow's session. But what's happening here is that in this week and in tomorrow's session in particular, we're going to be designing a curved pocket presentation folder and an embossed CD holder. And you can see examples of both of them as links within the assignment. But basically what we're going to be doing is taking the look and feel of the poster and then translating it across a bunch of different elements. So we're going to do a folder, we're going to do a CD cover, and then I don't know what we're going to do in week 4. I can't remember, but we're going to take it one more place. Let's just check and see. In week 4, we're going to do a postcard. Yeah. A postcard and revision. So yeah, good stuff. So we're going to take what we made and just practice extending it across some different applications. So that was kind of the reason why we did a bit of feedback on the assignment so that you could know kind of how to update your poster in the course of also creating your folder, also creating your CD cover, etc. So kind of what updates to make so that you can have a good kind of robust, cohesive project overall. So if you're watching this and you're like, well, that's great, but I didn't do the assignment and I wasn't planning on it because I'm behind. It's okay. You can start designing with the post or with the folder, which, as I said, we're going to go over in tomorrow's session, not today. But yeah, you can start designing with the poster or with the folder if you want to, and then kind of retroactively go back and do the poster. That's fine as well. Just kind of whatever would work best for you. And like I said, these are really meant to be highly, highly experimental. So when you're thinking about designing, don't get yourself so kind of caught up like it has to look like something. It just has to look like kind of an abstract painting design type thing. So it doesn't have to be too much. Kind of keep that in mind as well. All right, well, guys, I think we're gonna wrap it up a little bit early today. And in tomorrow's session, we are going to go over the assignment as well as go over the assessment, kind of step by step how to do that. And then we are going to have a session probably on Friday that's going to be like a kind of a generalized feedback, work in process, question and answer, tying up loose ends, and that'll probably be just about an hour. So we'll finish out our time in that way. All right. Well, thanks, guys, for a great kind of first feedbacky session. As always, if you have any questions about anything, feel free to let me know. And late work, always a good idea. So feel free to turn in anything at any point. As we are kind of getting into the second half of the course, it's kind of important that we do that and kind of start wrapping things up. But all right, guys, take care. Have a great day. And I look forward to connecting with you in future sessions this week. All right, see ya.